Okay, chest injuries. There's a bunch of different types of chest injuries. What you're generally worried about with chest injuries specifically is lung problems. Why did I point to my back? Because the lungs aren't really here, they're kind of back there, but lung problems. So, if you look at anatomy, my cameraman John is giving me the face. Yeah, watch Vikings. They like rip a guy open. It's a history thing, whatever. Anyways, so lungs are around. Lung problems. You have three kind of things that are often taught in the chest section. They are what happens with an open wound to the chest, what happens with a closed wound to the chest, and what happens usually with the abdominal area, because they kind of just throw the lower part of the torso in the chest section because of reasons. That's pretty standard in most first aid courses. They just kind of throw them in there. So with open versus closed and all this, there's a word that gets used a lot in first aid to talk about this called pneumothorax. Pneumothorax, not to be confused from the Lorax, that's from Dr. Seuss. The pneumothorax is basically means air is entering chest cavity. You're losing air into the chest cavity, and you have the pressure with the outside environment and the chest becoming the same. Why does this matter? When you breathe in, your lungs inflate to match the pressure in one environment, and then when you breathe out, your lungs deflate to match the pressure in the other environment, like a balloon. If the pressures are the same, the lungs cannot inflate or deflate. So we're trying to prevent that. Open pneumothorax, open chest injury, puncture to the chest from the outside, knife stab, gunshot, violent stopping motion like a car accident with something sharp, working in a machine shop or something and some sort of puncture there, who knows. For whatever reason, that's open. What does it look like? Bubbling or frothing blood. So you'll have a wound and then it will froth. You'll see kind of these bubbles froth up. Bubbles and froth should indicate there's air, something with air is happening there. That's how you know that you are dealing with this specific type of injury. When you are dealing with this specifically, you're going to want to use plastic, because you want to stop air from entering that chest cavity. Take plastic, go around the area, and then seal on three sides with some sort of tape. Medical tape is great. Find some tape. If you have this sort of plastic bag, ideally you've gotten it from a first aid kit, and you have that sort of tape, but you want to create this sort of three-side seal. This is going to make it so when you breathe in, it seals to the chest. When you breathe out, it opens and blood drains. It creates what's known as a flutter valve. Technically, recent advice in my area has suggested there is an alternative to this if you have a lot of dressings and bandages. So if you've got a lot of dressing, it'd be more than this. Basically, you get a giant pad of it, you put it on top, and you seal that with pressure. When this becomes blood-soaked, you take it off and you get new ones and you seal it again with pressure, or you just keep packing on top. Generally, you don't want to pack on top, really, because if this gets so blood-soaked that the blood has nowhere to go, it's just going to go in the chest, and it's going to fill the chest up, and the pressure is going to equalize in the inside of the outside because of blood filling the chest, not because of air. Same problem, your lung deflates. So if you have a bunch of this, then you can do that. If you don't, then plastic three-side seal. If you run out of this, plastic three-side seal after. But that's the general recommendation. That might be different depending on what jurisdiction you're in, so just double check. I'm 90+% sure that everyone's good with three-side seal. Some places might have not done the gauze thing, and who knows, maybe 5 years after this comes out, the standards change again on this one, stuff changes. With all chest injuries, this applies to the open chest injury, but with all chest injuries, you can look at inclining the person to the injured side. So if you have the type of injury where your chest has been punctured or you have a rib fracture or whatever, if you incline it to the person to the injured side while they're semi-sitting, then that area will naturally close a bit more and they'll breathe with the other side because it will become more open or more dominant. So if you look here, it's kind of hard to see, but I'll try to get a bit closer. If you look here, this is moving more and this is moving less. That allows you to have the bad side, basically, not move as much, the wound not open as much, the ribs not move as much, etc. Inclining someone to that injured side is going to be helpful in chest injuries in general. It's especially important, though, on the closed pneumothorax, closed chest injury, the rib fracture. So here's what happens with a closed chest injury. Rib breaks. Rib potentially punctures lung. Lung air escapes out into the chest cavity. Air equalizes inside-outside, lung deflates, you got a problem. That's basically the idea. You can't bandage the inside of your chest. You can't go like bandage it, you can't. You don't really have that option. So all you can really do here is minimize the amount of rib movement that's going on. Now, just because you have broken a rib doesn't necessarily mean you have a pneumothorax, doesn't necessarily mean you've got that air leakage, but it increases the risk of it happening in the future. So you should incline to injured side, assuming that's where the injury is, to help prevent that. Regardless, semi-sitting. There's a special type of rib fracture called a flail chest. You have multiple ribs broken in multiple locations. So if you get in a huge impact, so you're talking about car accident, explosion, a huge impact, multiple things broken in multiple locations can happen. And it doesn't happen in boxing or kickboxing because usually when someone breaks a rib, the fight's over. But in a mugging, sure, because I mean, the fight isn't over, right? So you could have like rib broken, rib broken, rib broken, rib broken, and you have floating ribs. The risk of a lung puncture is way higher here now because of you've floating sharp bone going around potentially. So how do you see it? A flail chest, when someone breathes in and out. So you see, for example, right? The chest is rising and falling. If with a flail chest, one side will sink in instead of going together. So you'll have a side sink in. That's how you'll know. We should be able to use a video here that's been on YouTube for a couple of years, and hopefully there's no copyright issues because I think it's been public domain for a while, but if so, then it might leave this video later. So here's an example of that I've seen so many medical training sessions use. This is the video everybody uses. So what do you do for flail chest? Same thing, semi-sitting, incline to injured side, but with the breathing, try to make it shallow and rapid. So instead of, look at all those ribs move, that's not great, right? So shallow and rapid is what you're looking for. That is closed rib fracture and flail chest. Closed rib fractures are generally closed. Open rib fracture is spicy. Oh no, just thought about that. You don't want to deal with those. Those are scary. Then you've got an open closed. You've got a closed and an open pneumothorax potentially. That would be bad. That'd be a very bad time. Just thinking about that. Okay, stomach, abdomen slices. So if you have your stomach has been cut for whatever reason, the most common cause of this is, from last date I checked, is the improper wearing of the lower seat belt in a car. So wear your seat belt, otherwise you go through the windshield. But I mean, if you wear it improperly and it's right against there, it can slice in a heavy impact. It can happen. So if it's a slight cut and it's not like open organs spilling out, move them into semi-sitting. Even though it's a bleeding issue, normally it would be flat on the back, but in this case you want to stop the organs from spilling out. So semi-sitting, and then bandage around the abdomen for blood. If you have a problem where the organs are spilling out, reminder, if it dries, it dies. So these are organs, they're leaving. If they dry out, they will die. So you're taking an abdominal pad dressing, if you have one, big, rectangular, generally huge dressing. Wet or moisten that a lot. It doesn't have to be like dripping, but okay, it's moist. Do you know what moist is? please. People hate the word. I get it. Just moisten the thing. Over top, and then bandage is necessary. Don't pull the organs out more. Don't shove them back in. They've got to go back in a particular way. That is a surgeon's problem. So just gather up as you can, over top, moist. Don't make this any more complicated for yourself than you need to be. All of these are 911 calls. Okay, you've got lungs deflating and organs coming out. If you're not calling, emergency services, what are you doing? Okay, this should be fairly straightforward. Okay, added bonus, explosions. Explosions are everything. You go from there and you just fly over there, and shockwave hit you. You could have ruptured organs, bleeding from anywhere, head or spinal injury, shrapnel. Who knows? So with explosions, you assume everything. You make sure that you're not in the environment if there's repeated explosions, because who knows? And start up top and go down and find stuff that's life-threatening and deal with as necessary. You might be doing CPR, you might be doing bandaging. You've got the primary survey in your emergency scene management. It's going to go ABC, and just walk through it, and good luck. That's pretty much explosions. In order to really give you more detail, we'd have to walk through a specific, but it's emergency scene management applied basically just works. Don't overcomplicate this. It's too many things to worry about. Just go step by step, thing by thing, and you'll be fine. You hope. Note for explosions. It's not just, war movies here. It's not just bombs and stuff. With explosions, you may run into them with any sort of pressurized gas or pressured container. So if you work around oxygen, if you work around propane, if you work around anything that's pressurized, that container can explode. If it's not stored properly, whatever. They're all explosion risks. So just keep in mind that explosions are a thing, and it's not just because an explosion goes off doesn't necessarily mean someone's being attacked. It could just be a thing that happens in a workplace. Explosions are more common than people might actually realize. So that's that.